Burmese pythons have devastated native wildlife in the Everglades.
Florida's swamps may appear untouched and ancient, but recent footage reveals an aftermath few ever imagined. Beneath the still waters and tangled roots lies a story of disruption, from invasive Burmese pythons creeping through the Everglades to disappearing wildlife and unexpected shifts in the ecosystem. What seems like ordinary swamp life is actually a chain reaction of chaos, human encounters, and powerful lessons in conservation. This footage isn't just nature on camera, it's evidence of the hidden consequences unfolding in one of America's wildest wetlands. Few animals have sparked as much fear and fascination in Florida as the Burmese python. Native to Southeast Asia, these giants were never meant to live in the Everglades. Yet exotic pet releases, hurricanes, and escaped animals created the perfect storm that allowed them to spread. By the 1990s, the first wild populations had taken hold, and they've only multiplied since. Burmese pythons are astonishingly suited to swamp life. Their camouflage blends into reeds and murky water. They can survive long periods without food, endure changing temperatures, and overpower prey far larger than themselves. Thanks to their elusive nature, biologists can only estimate their numbers, likely tens of thousands. The ecological consequences have been devastating. Mammals like rabbits, raccoons, and marsh rabbits have nearly vanished in python-heavy regions. Birds and ground dwellers have also plummeted. These losses send shockwaves through the food web, predators face starvation, plants lose natural seed dispersers, and the swamp's overall balance suffers. Efforts to control the snakes continue, but keeping up with their rapid reproduction is nearly impossible. Python hunts, tracking programs, and drones help, yet even aggressive removal barely slows them down. Their widespread takeover is a harsh reminder of how one invasive species can unravel an entire ecosystem. The latest swamp footage acts as a portal into the aftermath of this invasion. Early drone clips capture massive pythons gliding like shadows through mangroves. Scientists analyze every frame to understand their spread, behavior, and territory dominance. Other recordings reveal tense encounters between humans and snakes, researchers, hunters, and residents suddenly face-to-face with these massive predators. These moments show the growing overlap between human life and wildlife in the swamps. More footage documents changes in the ecosystem. Areas once filled with birds and mammals now sit eerily empty. Vegetation grows unevenly, too dense in some places, stripped in others. These images expose how deeply invasive species reshape the land itself. The consequences ripple outward. As small mammals decline, predators like foxes, hawks, and bobcats struggle. With fewer animals dispersing seeds or grazing, plant distribution changes. Soil shifts, water flow alters, and stagnant pools form, affecting fish, amphibians, and nutrient cycles. Other invasive species take advantage of these disruptions, creating a feedback loop that further transforms the Everglades. This footage proves the invasion isn't just about a snake, it's an ecological domino effect no one can ignore. Florida's swamps are home to people too, and the python invasion has changed their lives. While pythons rarely attack humans, their sheer size and unpredictability create real fear. Pets and livestock are vulnerable, and local encounters are becoming more frequent. Tourism, a major source of income, is affected as well. Airboat tours and wildlife excursions now carry warnings about python sightings. Visitors expecting to see native animals instead find empty marshes or invasive species. Monitoring technology plays a crucial role in managing these dangers. Drones, GPS trackers, and motion-triggered cameras help scientists detect python movements. Viral footage capturing their silent hunting habits provides valuable insight into their expanding range. Florida's Fish and Wildlife Commission encourages public involvement through bounty programs, controlled hunts, and awareness campaigns. People risk navigating hazardous terrain to remove snakes, raising difficult questions about conservation ethics and intervention. The human dimension becomes impossible to ignore: emotional stress, economic costs, and the sense of losing a cherished ecosystem all weigh heavily on residents. And yet, human activity, pet releases, development, and climate change helped create the conditions for this crisis. Climate change is tipping the scales even further. Warmer winters no longer limit python survival, allowing them to expand north. Drone footage now reveals snakes in locations once considered too cold. Shifting rainfall patterns deepen the challenge. Droughts force animals into tighter spaces, making them easy prey. Flooding pushes wildlife into human areas, increasing encounters and altering habitat structure. Vegetation changes as climate patterns fluctuate, affecting camouflage, hunting behaviors, and native species survival. Warmer conditions boost python metabolism, increasing their feeding rate, while exotic prey thrives, fueling population growth. Meanwhile, native species struggle to adapt. Climate change doesn't just aid the python, it intensifies the entire cascade of disruption. The footage teaches researchers how deeply interconnected the Everglades truly are. Every animal, plant, and water flow is part of a delicate chain. When one species collapses, everything around it shifts. Videos show python adaptability, night hunting, unexpected migration patterns, and camouflage that makes them nearly invisible. These insights help scientists refine removal techniques and understand the scale of the problem. The swamp footage also underscores the broader impact of human decisions. Exotic pets, land development, and environmental changes all paved the way for the invasion. The Everglades isn't just a wild habitat, it's a reflection of human choices. Despite the chaos, the swamps have revealed moments of resilience. Alligators, eagles, and other predators are beginning to hunt smaller pythons. Nature is slowly adapting. The footage also provides priceless scientific data on python biology, behavior, and long-term ecological impacts. This has transformed the crisis into an educational and research opportunity. Public awareness is rising too. Schools, organizations, and ecotours use the dramatic footage to spark conservation interest, inspire volunteer programs, and fund restoration projects. With strategic restoration, from reintroducing prey species to stabilizing water flow, scientists believe the Everglades can rebuild its ecological balance over time. Pythons aren't the only invaders reshaping the swamps. Cane toads, apple snails, nutria, exotic fish, and non-native rodents all contribute to habitat disruption. These species compete with natives, destroy vegetation, alter water flow, and create new challenges for conservation. Their interactions with pythons create complex chain reactions. Some provide easy prey, while others reshape hunting conditions. These compounding effects make restoration more difficult but also highlight the urgency of integrated management strategies. This technology allows researchers to cover massive areas and understand patterns that were once invisible. Restoration efforts, from replanting native vegetation to waterway stabilization, complement these innovations. The footage not only documents a crisis, it demonstrates how human ingenuity is transforming conservation. Florida swamps now stand at a turning point. If the python population continues to grow, native mammals and birds may disappear entirely from certain regions. Other invaders could dominate, turning the Everglades into a simplified, unrecognizable ecosystem. But hope remains. Predators are adapting. Humans are learning faster. Technology is improving. Public awareness is rising. With continued tracking, removal, regulation, and restoration, scientists believe the Everglades could regain stability, even if it becomes a new version of itself. The future of Florida swamps depends on sustained effort, smart policy, and the willingness to learn from the lessons captured in every piece of footage. As the cameras kept rolling and Jeremy's fame exploded, things at home were slowly falling apart. What started as a few disagreements became constant arguments, often over the smallest things. Melissa tried to keep the peace, but the pressure of public life was beginning to crush them both. Jeremy, overwhelmed by the spotlight, would often shut down emotionally. Melissa, who already dealt with years of trauma from Hollywood, felt abandoned. They were living in the same house but drifting miles apart, pretending everything was fine whenever the media asked. Behind the smiles, there was a storm no one could see. Melissa had always been strong. Growing up in the spotlight forces you to be. But even the strongest people reach their limit. And for her, the breaking point came during an interview where she was asked about her perfect family life. She smiled politely, answered the question, and went home, then cried alone in her car for almost an hour. That was the moment she realized the truth: she wasn't living, she was surviving. And she was tired of pretending everything was okay. As their marriage continued to unravel, Melissa finally admitted something she had kept buried for years: her past trauma with Patty Duke had never fully healed. The emotional damage, the manipulation, the fear, it still lived inside her. Jeremy didn't understand why certain things triggered her so deeply, and Melissa didn't have the strength to explain it every time. It wasn't just marriage problems. It was decades of pain resurfacing. And she was finally confronting it. Jeremy wasn't a villain, but he also wasn't the partner Melissa needed during her emotional collapse. Instead of comforting her, he retreated deeper into silence. He felt attacked by her pain, even when she wasn't attacking him at all. He started spending more time away, taking longer jobs, staying out late. Rumors began to swirl. Melissa pretended not to hear them. But deep down, she knew something was breaking, and it might be too late to fix it. The final turning point wasn't a dramatic fight, it was the exact opposite. One night, after another long day of filming, Melissa came home and found Jeremy sitting at the kitchen table. No yelling. No anger. Just exhaustion. He looked at her and quietly said, "We're both unhappy. And we can't keep doing this." It wasn't anger that ended their marriage, it was defeat. Two people who loved each other, but no longer knew how to be together. After the separation, Melissa finally allowed herself to heal from everything she had carried since childhood. She began therapy, reconnected with family, and started writing again. For the first time in decades. She was living for herself. And most surprisingly, as she healed, she began to understand Patty Duke more deeply, not as a villain, but as another broken woman who had passed her trauma forward. Even after separating from Jeremy, Melissa remained in the public eye. Interviews, paparazzi, and Hollywood gossip created a constant pressure. Fans saw her as a strong, unshakable star, but behind closed doors, she was still working through years of pain. The contrast between public perception and private reality was staggering. Every smile on the red carpet hid a memory she had buried for decades. And every carefully worded interview was a shield, protecting her from having to relive her past trauma in full view of the world. Melissa realized that Hollywood didn't just observe her, it judged her. And surviving under that scrutiny required every ounce of resilience she could muster. Therapy became a turning point. It wasn't an instant fix, but it gave Melissa the tools to finally confront the experiences she had spent a lifetime suppressing. She learned to identify patterns, to understand the long-lasting effects of manipulation, and to process the anger she had kept inside. Small breakthroughs began to build momentum, forgiving herself for mistakes, acknowledging her pain, and understanding that vulnerability wasn't weakness. Through therapy, Melissa started to reclaim her identity, not just as a former child star or a wife, but as a woman with her own voice, her own story, and her own strength. As Melissa healed, she also began rediscovering passions that had been sidelined for years. She returned to writing, embraced theater, and slowly rebuilt connections with old friends. Every project she took on wasn't just work, it was a statement of independence, a reminder that she could define herself outside of Hollywood's spotlight and her past relationships. This period of reinvention wasn't without challenges. Doubts lingered. Fear of judgment persisted. But with every step forward, Melissa grew more confident in her choices and more at peace with her past. Patty Duke's presence in Melissa's life, though long gone, continued to influence her. Early on, Duke had been a figure of both inspiration and trauma. Through reflection, Melissa began to separate the fear from the lessons. She recognized that Duke's own struggles didn't excuse the pain Melissa endured, but they did explain it. This nuanced understanding allowed Melissa to process her memories more fully. She could honor the impact Duke had on her life without letting it control her future. It was a subtle but crucial step in her journey toward emotional freedom. Recovery wasn't just about looking back, it was about moving forward. Melissa started forming relationships that were rooted in mutual respect and understanding. She learned to set boundaries, to say no to situations that felt unsafe or draining, and to prioritize her own emotional health. This wasn't always easy. Old habits die hard, and the instinct to please or protect others lingered, but she steadily grew stronger. Through this, Melissa discovered an essential truth: healing isn't linear, and personal boundaries are a form of self-respect, not selfishness. Melissa also began reevaluating her relationship with fame. Hollywood had given her opportunities, visibility, and success, but it had also amplified her trauma and created unrealistic pressures. Through reflection, she learned to navigate the industry on her own terms. She no longer allowed herself to be defined solely by the roles she played, the awards she won, or the gossip surrounding her life. Instead, she focused on authenticity, choosing projects that aligned with her values and personal growth. This shift was subtle, but powerful. It signaled a transformation from surviving Hollywood to mastering it on her own terms. Melissa's personal healing led her to advocacy work. She began speaking publicly about child actors, mental health, and surviving trauma in Hollywood. Interviews, panels, and charity work allowed her to turn her personal pain into purpose. She shared her story carefully, highlighting lessons learned and the importance of protecting young performers. By using her platform, she helped others avoid the mistakes and dangers she experienced. This section shows her evolution from a victim of circumstances to someone using her experience to help others. It's critical for inspiring the audience and adding depth to her personal journey. Even as she focused on advocacy, Melissa faced constant public scrutiny. Paparazzi and gossip outlets tried to twist her past or personal struggles into sensational headlines. Footage from interviews, old news clips, and award shows revealed the relentless pressure she faced. Yet Melissa learned to navigate it with grace, selectively sharing her story while maintaining privacy and dignity. This section highlights the challenge of fame and how the public's perception can complicate personal healing. It also reinforces resilience. Audiences see she's learning to control her narrative. One of the most important steps in Melissa's recovery was rebuilding relationships. Estranged family members and old friends became sources of comfort and grounding. Melissa shared moments of laughter, support, and understanding, showing that community and trusted relationships were critical to overcoming trauma. She learned to lean on people she trusted without losing her independence. This adds a human element to her journey. Audiences relate to the universal need for connection, emphasizing that healing is not done in isolation. Melissa adopted journaling and reflection as daily practices. Writing allowed her to process complicated emotions, track her progress, and recognize patterns in both her past and present. Through reflection, she could separate feelings of guilt, fear, or anger from rational understanding, helping her make healthier decisions in relationships and career choices. This section shows practical steps toward healing. It makes her journey relatable for viewers who may face similar struggles, showing that recovery requires intentional practices, not just time. Melissa's journey culminated in embracing her independence. She realized her self-worth wasn't tied to fame, her marriage, or anyone else's opinion. She started taking risks in her career and personal life, unapologetically pursuing projects and passions that resonated with her. Her confidence grew as she saw that she could thrive on her own terms. This is the transformational climax of her personal arc. The audience sees her fully step into empowerment. She's no longer reactive but proactive, inspiring viewers. While Melissa healed, she never forgot the lessons from her past. Instead, she reframed them as guidance for her future. She acknowledged the pain, forgave herself, and learned from it. This balance of memory and growth allowed her to speak honestly about past experiences without being trapped by them. This section emphasizes maturity and wisdom. It teaches the audience that true healing involves integration of experience, not erasure of it. Melissa now mentors young actors, sharing advice about boundaries, self-care, and recognizing toxic influences. She emphasizes resilience, the importance of support networks, and the power of finding one's voice in a challenging industry. Through her story, she inspires the next generation to avoid repeating the mistakes she endured. This extends her personal story into a legacy. It's aspirational and positions her as a teacher and role model, broadening the impact of the script beyond her own narrative. Even after gaining personal clarity, Hollywood's pressures never fully disappeared. Interviews, casting calls, and public appearances reminded Melissa of her past struggles. Some directors and producers still viewed her as difficult because of her strong voice and boundaries. Instead of shrinking, she embraced her authenticity. She learned to say no to projects that compromised her values and yes to opportunities that aligned with her vision. By doing so, Melissa reclaimed control over her career, demonstrating that self-respect and success can coexist. This section emphasizes professional empowerment. It shows how she translated personal healing into practical decisions in her career, inspiring viewers that boundaries in professional life are critical. Melissa eventually shared her truth publicly. On a talk show interview, she spoke candidly about her past trauma, her struggles with Patty Duke, and the impact on her marriage. The audience heard the unfiltered story, her pain, anger, and eventual acceptance. The reaction was overwhelming. Fans expressed admiration, journalists acknowledged her honesty, and other actors reached out to share their own experiences. This is a narrative climax. Sharing her story publicly demonstrates courage, accountability, and vulnerability. It also serves to educate the audience about the hidden struggles of child actors and the reality behind Hollywood glamour. After coming forward publicly, Melissa began rediscovering joy. She immersed herself in creative projects, from writing to directing and even mentoring young actors. Every project became a reminder that passion can coexist with purpose. She also explored hobbies outside the spotlight, painting, hiking, and spending quiet time with close friends. These activities weren't just distractions, they were acts of reclaiming life outside fame. This section highlights personal fulfillment and emotional resilience. It reinforces the message that recovery involves nurturing one's soul, not just healing from trauma. One of the hardest lessons Melissa learned was balancing public curiosity with personal boundaries. Social media, interviews, and public appearances constantly invited scrutiny. She learned to choose what to share, when to speak, and how to protect her personal life. By managing this balance, she could continue advocacy and mentorship without sacrificing her well-being. Privacy became a form of empowerment. This section teaches practical wisdom for anyone in the public eye. It emphasizes that control over one's narrative is part of emotional and psychological survival. Melissa's experiences inspired her to mentor young performers. She focused on teaching boundaries, self-care, and awareness of industry pressures. Her message was clear: talent alone isn't enough, emotional intelligence, support networks, and resilience are equally essential. Through mentorship programs, workshops, and one-on-one guidance, she began shaping the next generation of actors who could thrive without losing themselves. This section expands her influence from personal healing to societal impact. It positions Melissa as a mentor and thought leader, demonstrating the ripple effect of overcoming trauma. Looking back, Melissa realized that her life had been a tapestry of struggle, triumph, and transformation. The hardships with Patty Duke, the pressures of Hollywood, and her failed marriage were all part of her story, but not its entirety. Her legacy, she understood, wasn't defined by past pain but by how she chose to grow from it, help others, and inspire change. Each chapter of her life contributed to a larger narrative of resilience, courage, and authenticity. This section gives narrative closure and perspective. It emphasizes growth and frames her life as a journey of empowerment rather than victimhood, inspiring the audience with hope and wisdom. Melissa now spends a large part of her life guiding young performers through the challenges she faced. Her advice is simple but powerful: protect your boundaries, prioritize your mental health, and always have a support system you can trust. She emphasizes that fame can be intoxicating, but it comes with unique pressures. Child actors are often treated as small adults, forced into situations that require emotional maturity far beyond their years. Melissa encourages them to recognize the difference between performing on stage or screen and the expectations placed on them in real life. In interviews and workshops, she often recalls the most critical lesson she learned: your voice matters. Don't let anyone convince you it doesn't. It's a message she hopes reaches every young person navigating Hollywood's complex ecosystem. This section extends her personal healing into mentorship. It gives viewers actionable takeaways, showing that Melissa's experiences have transformed into guidance for others. Through years of struggle and recovery, Melissa has developed a clear sense of personal wisdom. She approaches every decision, whether career-related or personal, with intention and reflection. She has learned to pause before committing, asking herself, does this align with my values? Does it nurture my growth? Whether it's selecting a role, choosing collaborations, or managing public appearances, she applies lessons from her past trauma to ensure she doesn't repeat old patterns. Her friends and colleagues notice the difference. Melissa moves with quiet confidence, not arrogance. She simply knows her worth and acts from a place of authenticity. This section shows personal growth in action. The audience sees how healing translates into practical, everyday decisions, emphasizing the long-term impact of her journey. Beyond professional wisdom, Melissa has also found joy in the simple moments of life. Spending time outdoors, enjoying nature, reconnecting with old friends, and creating art have become central to her well-being. Even small activities, like a quiet morning coffee or reading in the sun, remind her that life is more than deadlines, interviews, or public perception. These small joys symbolize a reclaiming of autonomy, moments where she is fully present, fully alive, and no longer defined by her past. The footage she shares occasionally on social media or in interviews often reflects this shift: a smile without pretense, laughter without obligation, a life slowly being reconstructed piece by piece. This section humanizes Melissa. It illustrates that recovery isn't just about overcoming trauma, it's about reclaiming everyday happiness, making her story relatable and inspiring. Despite progress, Melissa acknowledges that shadows of the past remain. Memories of Patty Duke's manipulation, the pressures of Hollywood, and the struggles of her marriage still occasionally resurface. However, she no longer allows these shadows to dictate her life. Instead, she confronts them with clarity and compassion, using the lessons learned to guide her choices. Melissa's story demonstrates that healing doesn't mean erasing the past, it means integrating it, understanding it, and using it to build a stronger future. This section emphasizes realistic healing. It shows audiences that trauma isn't forgotten but can be transformed into a source of insight and empowerment. One of the most inspiring aspects of Melissa's journey is how she turns trauma into purpose. Every experience, no matter how painful, informs her advocacy, mentorship, and creative projects. She works with organizations that protect child actors, speak on mental health, and encourage resilience in young people. Through panels, interviews, and personal mentorship, she ensures that her experiences benefit others, transforming personal pain into communal gain. Melissa often says that if she had to endure hardship, she wants it to serve a purpose beyond herself. Her story is no longer just about survival, it's about transformation, impact, and legacy. This section elevates the narrative. It frames Melissa's struggles as not just personal but socially meaningful, inspiring the audience and reinforcing the idea that hardship can be turned into something constructive. Melissa's recovery highlights the importance of family and chosen support systems. While some relationships with biological family members were complicated, she cultivated connections with people who respected her boundaries and encouraged growth. Close friends, mentors, and supportive colleagues became pillars of stability. Melissa learned that healing is not solitary, it is shared. By surrounding herself with people who honor her journey, she reinforced her resilience and strengthened her ability to navigate challenges. This section reinforces that healing is relational, not just individual. It also gives the audience practical insight into the importance of trust and community in personal growth. A central lesson Melissa demonstrates is the courage to be vulnerable. After years of hiding emotions for survival, she learned that vulnerability is a form of strength. Whether sharing her experiences publicly, advocating for others, or expressing emotions in private relationships, Melissa embraces openness. Her vulnerability allows her to connect deeply with others, creating empathy and understanding where fear or silence once ruled. This section emphasizes emotional intelligence and human connection. It reinforces the inspirational arc of the script. Strength emerges not only from action but from honesty and openness. Melissa's story isn't over, it's evolving. She continues to write, mentor, and advocate while exploring new creative projects. Her journey reflects continuous growth, a reminder that life doesn't pause for trauma, but you can learn to move forward on your own terms. She has learned that balance is key, honoring her past, engaging meaningfully in the present, and planning for a future guided by intention rather than fear. Melissa's evolution is proof that even amidst setbacks, disappointment, and hardship, people can reclaim their life, their voice, and their joy. This section closes the narrative arc with hope. It signals forward momentum and inspires the audience to believe in resilience and self-reclamation. Ultimately, Melissa's life is a testament to resilience, courage, and transformation.